Steve. Wanted to go over today. Oh, well, it started late. Okay, never mind. Anyway, so welcome to our Tuesday edition. April, it's far too late in the year 2026. Wanted to show the new beginnings of the AI intelligence tool that we are. And actually, I just want to do this real quick while this is offline. So I don't really want this to be live where I'm showing it. ChatGPT's analyzer. Okay, now I'm ready to take this live. So this is not a public tool yet. This is a tool we will be launching out to the public probably by the early summer. It's not yet a public tool. And I'm going to take it live now. This is growing into a very powerful AI automation as a replacement for our previous one. Previously, we were running off ChatGPT, and it was just a lot more intensive for the agents to use. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Guerrilla Real Estate is actively looking for more agents and wholesalers. Our AI homepage is one of our pages. Guerrilla Real Estate obviously is another one. And this is the application. And it will have more buttons. We do lending, so it'll have a lending button. It'll have a property analyzer button, meaning really a complete 25-page building inspection. Throw in your information, throw in your answers, and it will analyze and organize them. I do have to start out, guys, by saying two things. One is, my agents and wholesalers, you don't go to your sellers with this. You put this in your report to us. And then after we analyze it, we take it back and we go to your sellers. So that's there. Anyone else, when you become a subscriber, you have the right to use it and whatever. It'll also, all of our deal activity is going to run through here. This will kind of front end our CRM, and it's going to analyze your documents, make sure you sign stuff right, all that. So no more partially signed seller documents, partially signed buyer documents. Nothing going to get through or stored or to me without it being there. So we're growing this to being a very active and powerful tool. And as you can see, the structured form page is pretty detailed. And we have other pages, specialty for self-storage, specialty for mobile home park, specialty for whatever. Then we also have page deal info. Now, the one limitation right now is you can only put up like two or three images for one document. It doesn't have a lot of capacity there. We're working on, it's actually an internal issue with how the software works that we're trying to code around. We'll get that fixed because obviously it takes more than 2 or 3 images to make a decision. But this can take all of your information, take all of your whatever, and it will generate a complete property answer. For example, we're going to use this right now and we're going to give it a portfolio of properties as a test module. And this is all I'm giving it. Now, it is going to some outside sources. It is going to some outside sources to look at the portfolio, is to look into things like rents in the market, to look into things like comps, to look into things like whatever. We are adding PropStream and Tract IQ and other things into the equation. So it's doing what you give it, and it's doing what research it can get. And you can give it as much as you want. And when you hit submit for deal analysis, it will take some time and think about the job. And while we're letting it do that, this is our Guerrilla Real Estate website for those of you who may want to come on board. I will cover Guerrilla Real Estate in a moment. While we're waiting for it to analyze, it takes a few minutes. Has anyone got any questions? And I still got to figure out how to get, because I know Alex is on YouTube. I can figure out how to get Alex over here, whatever. But so it's still percolating. So what it does when it comes out the other side is pretty impressive. The first thing it will do, it will flag the information we didn't give it in the report. It will say, hey, in the report, you didn't give me these answers. And Please give me these answers. And here's how important this is, guys. We had a submission from somebody yesterday. Did a lot of research on a property, talked to an owner for several hours or for several whatevers on several properties, is what I meant to say, and came back with what he learned on each property. Well, unfortunately, and this is where, guys, when we say to you, your first few times doing cold calls, your first few times doing whatever, don't just wing it. Have us do the calls with you. We mean it. Because Nair is working very hard to bring in a lot of great deals, but a lot of what he got from the seller. The seller said, hey, the property's in kind of rough shape. It's rentable, but maybe. That's because the seller's opinion was not great of the property. What that told the system was complete rehab. Because what we should have done with that, and Nair heard me do it, and it's going to help, is, well, when you say it's in rough shape, how old's the roof? The roof's 25 years old. Roof work? Yeah. How old's the furnace? Oh, that furnace is old, but it still works. When I got on the phone and talked to the seller, I discovered that everything works fine. And it was renovated before he bought it. He thinks around the late 90s. Well, that's not a expensive, that's not a heavy, deep, no systems rehab. That took the repair estimate on the property from $110,000 in repairs to like $50,000 in repairs. So obviously affected the offer we could make. So now you'll see here, it came up with, now when it comes back, still got some tweaking. I don't want it to come back to this page. I want to come up with a different way for it to come back, but it comes back here, and this is what it gives for 7 assets. It said Luzerne County, PA, whatever, which actually is the information we gave it, right? This is the data was provided. Portfolio asked, whatever, data missing or assumed. Boom. Now remember, all we gave it for this is this. Nothing a lot for context. Nothing a lot was given. So it's making a lot of assumptions because stuff wasn't given. Factors used. This describes what it used to do its calculation. And I probably have to teach it. It's itemizing all of its different settings. So it's letting you know, how do we achieve these numbers? What market data was it able to pull? Property by property, whatever. I'm just seeing if anything that beeped in is quite critically urgent. Probably not. Alex, I see you're kind of in there. I hope you're on there. Let me shut this stupid thing up. All right, property by property analysis, repair estimate, and it outlines for you. So the important thing here is this gives you and potentially a future buyer a really solid basis of understanding what we're interpreting this property needs. Now, in the future, it's going to take whatever dozens of pictures you have, and it's going to read the pictures, and it's going to determine the pictures, whatever. That's whenever, I'm working on this a couple hours a day, so whenever I get around to that. And here it's saying stated 28,000 rehab versus estimated 35,100. I've trained it to go with our estimate rather than seller's estimate, because sellers love to say, hey, it only needs $5,000 of work, because that's what the materials will cost them. Whatever. And then it walks you through in detail how it accomplished its math. So it's saying the ARV midpoint of 151. So 151 times 0.7 means take off $35,000 minus the repairs is $35,000. So 106 minus 35 is 71. You got to get used to this, the way it phrases this. We're working on it. So 151 times 0.7 is 106. 106 minus 35 is 71. 71 minus the wholesale fee is 61. And here's the rental math. Using it looks at the HUD numbers, Section 8 numbers, looks at a couple other places, and then it gives 3 rental answers based on 0 maintenance vacancy management. We can offer 98. Now, what I need to add in here, and I will add in here right now, in fact, I'll do this like right this second, is I need to add in here and that thing I do love about Claude is I can throw that into any Claude project page and it will bring me back to the right place. So what I'm getting at with this is it came at 108,553 minus wholesale fee, but it forgot to take into account the $35,000 repair estimate. So we can't really offer 98,000. We have to offer 63,000 because the property still needs those repairs. Does it need them becomes a debatable. Okay, does it need them? Okay, is it rentable at quality at that level for that number? Don't know. So it has to be a range, and actually I have to explain that. I'll explain that to Claude right now. And I'm actually in a documentary module now, a document creation module. So I'm gonna have to go back and move that to the right place, but I did not want to forget that. So what I mean by that is 98,000. Okay, it might rent perfectly fine without these improvements that we're talking about making. So 98,000 if it needs no improvements, 63,000 if it needs those $35,000 in works done. Now gives a range, and this is again why you guys don't go running back to the seller, and this is why we have to be careful, because the seller might say, oh, it's perfectly fine, it's rented. And that's not a wrong piece of information. I have some properties that are rented for $1,200, $1,400, which is market rent, that if I'm flipping the property, I'm going to have to make repairs to. I'm going to have to improve the property for a flip. But if we're not flipping the property, if it's renting, it never needs to be improved. So this result here becomes a range of 98 to 33, 63. 98 minus 35 is 63. So it becomes a range. And that becomes a judgment call. That becomes a negotiation point with the seller. 67 minus 35 becomes 32. Same idea. This one gets a little scary. And these are what changes here. Really, the only thing that changes here is the pad. There's no maintenance vacancy management pad here. There's a 20% maintenance vacancy management pad here. And there's whatever, 30% there. Offer matrix. These are what we're offering. And then it takes you through every one of these properties. So this is a pretty powerful tool that we're building. And this is ready right now for our teams to be using. So this is not like some pie in the sky future thing. It is constantly being improved. It was actually available Friday, and then I broke it when I made improvements. So I now have 2 versions. I have a test version and a real version. And this will eventually actually write the letter to the seller and the letter to the team. But what's also interesting is it gives a property by property breakdown and a portfolio answer. And an answer at valuations at different cap rates on commercial. It also analyzes self-storage. So it does a lot of pretty cool stuff. So that was the first thing that I wanted to cover um, with everyone is this tool and its capabilities. Now, the next thing I wanted to cover, and just I'm going to suspend broadcasting the whatever until I can show this, is the compensation agreements. I'm not even going to show them because it doesn't make sense to show the piece of paper. Um, if you join Gorilla as a licensed agent, we have three compensation plans, but really we have one. Meaning we have three, but most people are only going to pick the one. You're licensed. This is not for the unlicensed guys. You guys have a whole different set of conversations to be having with us, and you can't do certain types of wholesale in Pennsylvania without being licensed and so forth. So we have a whole different program for unlicensed. But if you're licensed, we really want to add you to our team. The more experienced you are, the more higher volume you are, the more hands off you are for us, the lower your fee. Okay. But we have the 80/20 plan, which caps out after $10,000 paid to company. And after that, it's only $300 at closing. So we have that right there. Very cool, very low, very efficient. Beats, I think, anyone else's 80/20 plan. We are also a flat rate broker. 500 per deal plus 300 compliance fee, so a total of 8. And there is a cap out on that as well. I can't off the top of my head remember what it is. But you pay us the 8-ish number, the 800 number, possibly a little lower, and you keep the rest. So if you're making a $20,000 wholesale spread, you're paying out 800, you're keeping 19.2, and all you did was get your license and join the company. We really want to bring you on board. If you're somebody who's like, hey, I have my license, I want to keep my license, but really I'm a contractor, or I'm a video producer, I'm a whatever, and I just kind of want it around, we have a part-timers program. We have a program that is specifically aligned for people that don't really want to do a lot of deals. So you've got a discounted program when you're just parking a license, and you've got, then you pay your fees. And I'll tell you, it's a little more expensive per transaction when you're on that program. First of all, because I don't want to give everyone the discount and be doing real work. But second of all, if you don't do a lot of deals, I probably have to babysit the deal more. So we are actively, aggressively looking. We've also doubled our compensation plan for. We've also doubled our compensation plan for people who refer agents. We've now gone up to 10% of the monthly fees and everything else. So lots of interesting stuff here. Nair, you came on board. Cool. Hey, Nair, it's actually a good time. Anything new?
I have a call with a client who texted me through one of my ads. I believe one of his parents passed away and he died. He has like 3 or 4 houses that are in probate. So
All right. So yeah. So when are you doing that call? I can jump on with you if you want.
probably right after this, more than likely.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll be around. The only time I won't be around is around 2:30 to 3 because we're having our new office inspected. We're moving the office up to the Harvey's Lake building, primarily because I own it and I can pay myself rent. Nobody ever comes to the office anyway. It's a good space to meet. The other thing is we finally have offers on, which is the next thing I was going to jump into, was your self-storage deal. So
Okay.
we finally know what we want to do on that one. And so, yeah, so basically, I don't know if I'm still showing or not. Am I?
No, you
All right.
took it off.
All right. So basically, guys, just to fill you in, Nair found the absolutely right type. And this is, he's doing a great job, but just so you know, this isn't like he's the one with the magic sauce, although he might be. But it's a matter of any kind of this, and we're hiring cold callers. We need you guys to get out there. I mean, really, the end of the day, the job is bring in front-end deals, self-storage, mobile home parks, residential, multifamily, commercial, whatever it is, get us on the phone with sellers. Probate's a great angle. And remind me now, I'll circle back to that at the end of this, other ways we can find deals. And at some point, someone remind me, I got to talk about workout with asset managers at banks because mortgages are going south, and we want to try to get ahead with the smaller banks before they actually foreclose. Because once they get filed at the courthouse, anybody who looks up pre-foreclosures, which could be you, anybody's certainly welcome, I'll help you do it, sees them. If we have relationships with bankers and we say, hey, if you got people that are kind of heading toward the rocks, we can maybe get ahead of that curve. But back to this self-storage facility, it's a guy in a fairly small part of Ohio, and he's a teacher or whatever, just kind of the perfect self-storage tired landlord. Running his facilities, they're doing fine. Just doesn't really feel like he's wanting to do this one anymore, I guess, for lack of a better term. And a pretty basic facility, a pretty good facility, but a dozen or so of the units are shipping containers, those things on the back of trucks that can be lifted off the trucks. And guys, that is not a bad self-storage model. The only problems I've heard with those, and this is probably the first thing we would look at, is they can get really humid inside. Surprisingly enough, they're actually airtight because they go over the ocean. And so a lot of people frown on them because stuff can grow when it's humid air that's locked up. So we might throw some ventilations on there, but that's totally fine. It's a semi-portable model. It's an affordable way to drop more storage units. But anyway, it's a great facility. We have his numbers. He's pretty much running it himself. And he doesn't really, he's having someone evaluate it. And this is the dangerous phrase. I'm having someone evaluate it. Probably a translation broker. So we want to get an offer to him as quick as can. So we went through the numbers, and I beat on this all yesterday. My partner beat on this last night, and we finally come to what numbers we can probably offer this guy. And, oops, that's not the window. That's also not the window. That's weird. Okay, fine. Did I hit send on it? Let me see. All right, so let's see. I keep it. Okay, so not sure where the window went, but I remember what the offers are. Okay, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Okay, fine. So we came up with 3 offers, and I won't go into the deep deal analysis, but it has to do with a much heavier cost load than he currently has. He has about 80,000 in net income, and by the way, or in gross income. And by the way, Nader, one of the curveballs in that I didn't pick up on, the AI did, is he had counted in his gross income, and he's not wrong, his income tax number, which isn't covered in the typical cost load number. So he said he had 84 to 90,000 income or whatever. Well, that 6,000 was what he paid in sales tax. So again, you did everything right, but just it kind of is something for us to think about in the future, for me to think about in the future, not you, is, hey, make sure we look where the sales tax line is to make sure we don't count that as gross income. Because it's obviously not. It's a pass-through. You collect it, but it's immediately owed to the government. So whatever. And then because he's an owner-operator, because he's taking the phone calls from the people, he's coordinating with this guy he has clean out the units. He doesn't pay for those services. So those aren't costs for him. From my standpoint, if I'm buying a facility, or anyone professionally in the storage industry is buying a facility, we aren't doing that. I don't know. I didn't meet anyone at the conference last week that was getting calls from tenants while we're sitting at the self-storage investors conference. That's not the game. So he had like a 23% cost load. We're at 40, basically. So we came up with, the AI came to, after it found the glitch about the sales tax, it came up to 485 regular offer. Regular offer meaning I go to the lender and say, hey, give me a loan. 525 is he takes half the equity. So bank gives 80%. He puts up 10. We put up 10. He gets paid interest on his 10. And then the last one is we're not putting any money into the deal except for closing costs. And really, we ideally should be a little lower than this, but because he bought it for 425 several years ago, I'm a little not sure if we don't hang a 5 on it that we're even going to get a conversation. So I'm like, all right. So on all of these, we can go up about 20 grand further. If we absolutely had to, we can probably go to 515 or 520 on the normal, go to the bank loan. And you'll notice that I'm offering kickers. And I'm not even sure I'm going to offer a kicker on this one because I don't necessarily, I could kicker. So for us, a kicker is they get a percentage of increase in net operating income. So I'm promising to buy you for 500. But if you really need to see a bigger number, I'll give you that on increases of income. I have a guy in northern Michigan. I'm working through his broker right now. Guy desperately wants to see 1.5. That's the number he wants to see on the paper. It's an emotional thing for him. It's whatever. He needs to see 1.5. And I told the broker, I said, there's no way this thing affords more than 1.1. He's like, I know. I said, okay. So I'm giving you an offer of 1.5, 400,000 of which is kicker. Meaning 400,000 of which only happens if we increase the profit, NOI, net operating income, or if we increase the profit of the property. So at closing, let's just keep it simple. At closing, he gets 1.1. And he gets 20% of our increase in profits for the next until he gets $500,000 to $400,000. If we never increase profits, which in that facility I don't think we will, the guy never gets the extra money. It's there to get if the facility grows. But in this particular case, the guy overbuilt, basically. He put more money in than the place is worth. So I'm going to write this up now. We can call the guy a little later, but this is the presentation to Ohio. Listen, we got 3 offers for you. And I can give the kicker on all 3. It does not matter if I give the kicker on all 3. But 500 regular offer, whatever the other 2 are, 525 and 540. Those are the 3 options we can give him, and hopefully, and the justification for him is, first of all, he's getting $75,000 more than he paid for it or something.
Right.
So he's made profit. He's making profit. He's getting profit. Great. Also, the other justification is in 5 years, because this market is growing by like 1%, which is pretty much treading water.
Is that every year?
What?
Is that 1% every year?
1% population growth over the last 5 years every year.
Oh, okay.
And this is the other thing when you're doing deals like this, we had Tract IQ pull up an inspection. I'll pull up Tract IQ for a second. We had Tract pull up a storage report. I'm just trying to find it here on the facility. There it is. And this is a pretty complete competitive analysis. Now, this competitive analysis doesn't show some of the facilities that are just on the other side of the highway. So he's north, I think, of the highway. And then south of the highway is town. And there's 2 more facilities there that weren't on here.
If you're showing something, I can't see it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so this is Tract IQ. Oh, well, okay, let me go back to where Tract IQ is. So this is our Tract IQ report on the property.
Yeah.
And number of storage facilities, 3 mile radius, 1, meaning him. Well, when you look on aerial, there's 2 other facilities about 1.5 miles away that don't show up here. Now, when we're talking about the Fresno market or any market, if you find a facility that you can see from an aerial, and I'm not telling you to fly the whole country, but if you can find a facility that you can see from an aerial that isn't on Google, that doesn't have a website, that guy should be bought because he's not running his operation right. And he's probably not doing that great.
And that's exactly
what?
That's exactly what he said, because I asked him if he had a website or anything. He was like, no, I don't have any of that. I just have cameras.
Exactly. Yeah. And listen, he's making money the way he is. If we stick a website up, if we fly a website up there, if we fly whatever, we might get more interest. We might be able to charge more money because there'll be some competition for the units, but there's more competition in the market than is shown on this report. And we found that by Mark's very good. This is how Mark and I split the work is I do this end of it, and then Mark will actually drop the Google Maps guy and like drive around the neighborhood with Google Maps, pretty much. And he'll do a lot more of the sort of paper. Oh, look at the crime rate. Look at this. Look at that. So basically, we looked at this and we came up with, and this is actually where we got a lot of our population data. Like you'll see projected 5 years, population density and whatever. You'll see projections on household income. And it's saying projection of 5%. But you know what? 5% in 5 years means, is not that large against current inflation. But and also, by the way, I'm actually not sure is this projected 5% in 5 years or is this 1% in 5 years or 1% a year? I'm not actually sure. But since it's all tracked IQ and it's always standard, it compares fairly reasonably to other markets.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, Texas and Florida are going up by like 4%. 4%. So kicks this town's ass. But by the way, these are fairly stable numbers in the self-storage range. You've got people making, 60s to 80s, beautiful. You get above like 150, and on a typical income, on a typical range, they don't need self-storage because they can just build a garage on their property. They're probably homeowners and they can build a garage. Will they? No, they'll probably rent storage. But you get in those upper demo monies, especially above 200, they're probably not using your storage facility because either they're not keeping a lot of crap, or if they do, they're building a toy house or whatever. The other numbers on here, did I already go past it? Yeah, I already went past it. Is percentage of renters. I may not be able to, because I'm not going to be able to find it because I'm looking for it. And none of this is a disqualifier, but you like there to be at least a 30% of renters in the population, because apartments typically don't have a lot of storage. And certainly apartments don't have a lot of storage for things like jet skis and bigger stuff. So this is how we threw all this into our AI, blah, blah, blah. Mark threw it into the actual computer evaluator, and we came back to an offer numbering. I mean, you'll see where I was at before, 450, 475, 485. And I just kind of looked at it and said, I don't really see, if I were him, I wouldn't react that well to something with a 4 on it. He may not react that well to something with a 5 on it. He may be like, if I'm not at 650, 700, I'll take it to a broker and get another buyer. And my answer would be then, okay, great, we'll be a great broker for you. First of all, I'm not going to buy something. At this, I'm going to make about 10 grand a year. I'm going to make a little less than $1,000 a month. If I start paying upper 5s, 6s, what am I doing? What's the point? I'm taking a $500,000 risk to break even. No, I'm taking a $500,000 risk to sell this thing for $625 in 5 years. No,
Right.
It's just no. I can help him find a buyer. He probably won't find a buyer at those numbers, for the simple reason that unless he finds another him who lives locally, who's willing to take on that headache, no professional buyer is going to do it with his cost load, because he's going to very nicely. It's a guy that seems really sweet. He's going to say, but look how much money I'm netting. And I'm going to say, well, look how much money you're netting versus if you do the math, the way a professional distant investor would do the math. You don't want to say do the math properly, but, and bluntly, sir, there's a reason you don't want to keep doing what you're doing. Well, that's why we don't put in our numbers to have to do it. And for those of you who've heard my residential spiel before, if you don't do, and this goes back to the analysis tool here, I don't want the public to see that any longer. I have to. If you go back to the rent, the valuations, scrolling up. Okay, yeah. Pad 20%, pad 33% for maintenance vacancy management. If you don't include something for maintenance vacancy management, you bought yourself a job. A lot of tired landlords are living this life, and they think their property's worth this. And that's what they buy the property for. They look at these numbers and the income numbers and they say, oh, I'm going to make $9,500 a year on this property. Yes. If you turn every screw, you hammer every nail, and you deal with every tenant complaint and filling of apartments, you're going to maybe make, if you're lucky, $9,500. If a tenant on $1,000 a month apartment, if that thing sits empty for 3 months, you're now made $6,500. If you have to replace a furnace, you've now made $500 or less. You may have lost money. So that's why, and that's still with you doing the work. That's why maintenance vacancy managements are essential. So we just have to explain to this guy on the call, which we could do shortly after this. I got to finish like one document. You can do the call you're waiting on, and then we can finish one document. Then I'll call it. Gotcha. That's the conversation we have to have with, because he is the owner of this self-storage facility. He's living this life. He's living the life of rent comes in, I pay hard bills, and I'm done. That's it. Everything else is my time, my money, whatever. And so, all we can do is see. And the fact that he reached out to you as a tired landlord, he's already figured out that's not the game he wants to play. He didn't go to teaching school and get a degree and his certifications to take angry calls on $50 a month rental units. So anyway, so that's all I got for today. Anybody got any other questions? Otherwise, we'll jump off, and Nair and I can call this guy.
Actually, no, I did see something interesting yesterday, because I remembered that you talk about Pace Morby a lot lately, and he had popped up on my screen, and he said something like ridiculous. It was like a little clip of a podcast, and I just wanted to know how factual it was. He said that he was making like 500 mil on 100 car washes or something like that, and he said that for his students, basically, if his students just find him like the land for the potential car wash and or RV parks, he gives them like a percentage of that RV park just for finding them the land. And they like have a deal where within like, I believe like a certain amount of years, they get paid up to like $3,500 a month for like X amount of years until they exit at like 400,000. I was like, I don't know how factual that is.
So yes and no. And I don't know Pace personally, but Joe Scarice, who I'm on the podcast with, has met him a few times. So whatever. Because honestly, when I first saw Pace pop up, he's done very well. He probably owns some of what he says he owns. I don't know anything negative about him, but I was like, who the hell is this dude, and why would anyone believe him any more than me? Was bluntly what I was thinking. And I don't know the answer to those questions, but he does seem to have more legitimacy than I thought, because I write everyone off when they first come on, whatever. So and by the way, just to you in this, and mostly in the commercial space, but possibly the residential, certainly mobile home park, car wash, self-storage space, will do this. I'm happy to say, listen, if you bring me the right deal, and there's room in the right deal, not only am I paying you a fee, but I don't mind giving you some percentage of the profit. Understand, net operating income is after everything. So it's like, okay, it's like if I'm putting 10 grand a month and 10 grand a year in my pocket, and you have 1% for 3%, it's 3% of the 10 grand. So in order to achieve, he's saying $3,500 a month or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're getting, and it all depends what he I'm sure there's asterisks under asterisks under asterisks of that. I'm sure his lawyers have beat the crap out of those phrasings. At least I hope he's not that stupid. But if he's saying, I'll give you 5%, it's 5% of that bottom number. And so all I would say is, assuming that's the way he does it, and I'm curious to find out exactly how he does the math, but I don't know how else you do it, because how do you give 5% of a top line? But anyway, how big does the bottom line have to be for the students' help to find the deal percentage to be, $3,500 a month? Now, do car washes do well? Yes. Would I buy one? I mean, I'm looking at car washes, laundromats, mobile home parks, and self-storage. I'm looking for cash flow businesses. I'll buy any cash flow. My thing is, and there are people who I know people who are selling this self-storage to go into car washes and vice versa, whatever. But what I haven't gotten myself figured out on car washes and laundromats yet is there's a lot that needs physical touching on site. There's a lot that needs coin collection. I know some of them have gone cards, but whatever. Coin collection, unclogging of hoses, So I'm looking. If you find me one, I'll definitely look at it, especially here or east, somewhere like New Jersey, Massachusetts, New England, whatever. But also, the question is, a long way of saying yes, and I'm happy to cut someone in on a percentage of the deal. I'm happy to even cut someone in who says, hey, I want to be the manager. I want to be the guy that answers the phone for the facility. Like this facility in Ohio, my partner had this conversation this morning, is like, all right, this one isn't, and this is maybe a little bit of our noviceness to the industry. But how do we manage this thing? Okay. He has no gate, he has no fence. So he has no general access control. Anybody can walk up there and play with any lock they want to play with. And we can see them on the cameras maybe, but okay, how does that get handled? In a facility this small and this relatively unfenced, and our team that we work with has these answers. These are not like we're guessing, but it's like, all right, who's going to take the phone calls? This facility is so small with a fairly small profit margin. Who's going to take the phone calls? Right now, this guy is. So definitely plugging. So number one, yes, I'm happy to talk about paying a guy who finds me a deal, a percentage. Either paying him cash, giving a percentage of the deal, or possibly both. That's definitely doable. Number two, if somebody said to me, hey, I want to be a little more involved, whether you bring money, that's always an option, or you say, hey, listen, let me be the guy that answers the phone. Let me be the guy that, if the property was near you, there's boots on the ground. And that's what I do for my role. That's what my partnership role is. We can have that conversation as well.
Okay.
So what he's saying is not at all unheard of, nor is it something that, I'm against doing. The reason I presented the self-storage deal, the presentation to Ryan and you, was saying, okay, well, I want to use Hunting for Homes as crew. So I have to talk in terms of dollars.
Yeah.
If I'm the buyer, if I'm not the buyer, if we get it under contract and we're brokering it, then the $3,000 or whatever we talked about before for what you and Ryan are going to split off this is 3 or 5, whatever it was, I forget. But the point is, whatever that is, if I'm not the buyer, it then becomes whatever the buyer will pay. There's a guy, and he's running a very large self-storage wholesale operation, probably owns a bunch of facilities now too. He did one deal a few years ago, enormous deal, like $20 million. And he took a $250,000 wholesale fee, and he took 5% ownership of the new entity.
Jesus.
And the owners were not at all upset to do that. Now, did he buy in the ownership? How did he get, it was, that's how he presented it to me, was that the ownership was part of his wholesale fee. Don't know. Maybe it was. If we're wholesaling this to a third party, if whatever, then we can kind of sing that song however we want.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, the general idea is definitely doable. It's very hard to do in the residential world, because I can't imagine. Okay, so in the small residential one, in a double, triple, quad, 5, 10 unit, I'm not even sure. I I'm not even sure how I would phrase that to somebody, um, or how I would make that work. And I'm not sure as the owner, how do I fit you into a 5 unit property? I mean, it would have to be, I think, a 20, 30. It have to be something of reasonably
That's
substantial.
bigger. Yeah, it would have to be like 20 something
Yeah, I
units.
just, I mean, I think so. Like, I'm not against it in a residential. I just don't know where that. I'm not sure how you pull that off on something. Size matters is one of those areas where that matters.
Okay.
Hmm. But yeah, so I mean, basically, so yeah, so I mean, it's basically the right deal. Anything is possible, and when we talk about the kicker in these, and by the way, I kind of putting this on YouTube is probably a mistake because I'm not sure I want everyone else to do the kicker. But when we talk about the kicker in these, it's kind of like having the seller as a partner. Um, so it's kind of the same thing. I'm involving him in the growth of the operation.
Right.
And by the way, the seller finance is also done a little bit differently in these scenarios because we don't. Okay, so banks don't like second position mortgages. So in the mortgage world, real quick, so there's loan to value or loan to contract, depending on the kind of thing. But the bank is bringing a percentage of that number, either the appraisal number or the contract number, whichever. Let's say that's 80%. If there's going to be a second mortgage, and this does not make logical sense to me, but they do it anyway. The bank says, okay, my loan to value is not 80% now, it's 60%. Why is it 60%? Now that's not their loan to value. That is the total amount of lending allowed against the deal. So they're saying that them plus the second position mortgage holder equals 60%. And when I asked a lender about that, I said, okay, great, you do that. Why? He said bluntly, if I'm the only lender on the deal, there's no one else that can run to foreclosure court and try to dig up a storm. If there's two lenders on the deal, there's somebody else that could kick up a storm. So I want to make sure there's more equity so we both get paid. So when we do a seller finance and self-storage, unless the seller is real twink about it and we have to go the other way, he's going to be a partner in the enterprise for the period of time until that's paid off. So he doesn't show up as a second mortgage. So when we say seller finance, it's not as simple as, oh, it's just another mortgage. It's not any harder. It's just a different way of doing it.
Got
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Pretty much all I got.
All right, we'll do.
Um,
So do you want to call the self-storage around like 3, 4, since he's like a teacher?
yeah, that's probably right for him. We can call the other guy now if you want.
Okay. Now he didn't give me any details because he said he didn't know until he talked to the lawyer about probate and everything. So he said let's schedule a call for this week because he just don't know what he can do with the property yet. So he didn't want to.
Okay. Oh well, I mean, if he's not looking for a call today, that's fine. I just figured if he kind of said this week.
Yeah, he said like last week. He said like this week, like last week. He said next week, which is this week.
Okay. Then I mean, I figure we give him a call up. We say, listen, hey, and like, hey, when would you like to talk? We know you've got to do legal stuff, but when would you like to talk about the values of the property?
Gotcha.
And that's whatever basically about, and really the value of the property is the wrong way to say it. When can you tell us addresses and condition and get all the answers?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let me get him up here.
Yeah, so we can do that whenever you want, and What I'm doing here is I'm just using our LOI software to write the letter of intent on the Fresno property.
Okay. And is and the Fresno property, is it the same process? Like I gotta sign anything or anything like that?
So, I mean, if we get to the point where we're under agreement, basically, I'll write the contract. Ryan will review it. Ryan will review it, initial it. You'll review it, initial it. It'll go to him. But the first step will actually be a little more direct, and I'm not sure whether, because if we're the ones buying this, I might just have Mark and I sign it, and then I'll just send you guys. I'll just send over to Hunting for Homes a fee agreement kind of thing. If we're putting this under wholesale, I'd go the Ryan route. But normally, what we do in self storage is we don't bother sending over something to sign first. We send over a letter outlining, which is what I'm having a draft now. We send over a letter saying, "Hey, we're talking about this at these numbers, at these numbers." Until they say yes to the deal, there's no point in signing shit. So there's really nothing to sign right away.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All
All
right.
right. So you want to try that residential guy in about 20 minutes or so?
Yeah, 20 minutes. Yeah.
All right. I'll give you a call in a few.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
He was like, "Look, okay, so I get that nigga a car wash. I'm like, look, I can do this. You know what I'm saying? I found it.